Dear all participants, ladies and gentlemen, to begin with, I would like to invite Dean of Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas 11 Maret to deliver a welcome speech. To Professor Joko Suharjanto, time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Honorable Professor Dr. Jamal Wibowo, Rector of Universitas 11 Maret, the Honorable Vice Dean of Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas 11 Maret, Distinguished Speaker Professor Dr. Beni Cahyono from Coventry University, United Kingdom, Aranka Inklasiak Slut, PhD from Nicolaus Copernicus University, Poland, Associate Professor Dr. Felix Tercian Tan from University New South Wales, Australia, Professor Dr. Arif Ansori Yusuf from University Pajajaran, and President of IRSA, Agus Ganesiar Rahyuda, PhD from Universitas Udayana, and Retno Tanding Suryandari, PhD from Universitas 11 Maret. The Honorable Organizer of the Second Incredible Faculty of Economy Business Universitas 11 Maret, Perhimpunan Pelajar Indonesia Sedunia, Faculty of Economy Business Universitas Syah Kuala, Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Udayana, Faculty of Economic Universitas Tidar, Jurnal Ekonomik Malaysia, the Honorable Participant and Committee. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Since 2001, the Indonesian government has stimulated local economic development under decentralization regime. This policy brings beneficial impact such as improving economic development and welfare. That shows some indicator, for example, increasing local economic growth, per capita income, industrial progress and capital formation, physical quality life index, human development index, and decreasing level of property, unemployment, and equality disparity. Hopefully, the local government should pay more attention to address this indicator. Under an efficient and transparent business system, information technology really support the growth local economic development, such as promoting the life cycle of business in the long run period. It means that the higher quality of information technology, the higher economic growth. In the term of sustainability business, to Fakultas Economic and Business of Universitas 11 Maret has invited some partner to organize an interesting international conference called as the Second Incredible International Congress on Regional Economic Development, Information Technology, and Sustainability Business. The partner are Association of Indonesian Students around the world, Perhimpunan Pelajar Indonesia seluruh dunia, Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Syah Kuala, Faculty of Economic Business Universitas Udayana, Faculty of Economic Universitas Tidar, and Jurnal Ekonomik Malaysia. The second integrable will be held on 25 and 26, 2022, using two platforms, namely offline in Alana Hotel Colomadu and online Zoom meeting and YouTube channel. I highly appreciate to all researchers who present their paper during today's Congress. There are 105 papers submitted in this conference. Especially, I highly appreciate to distinguish keynote and invite speakers. Indeed, we will take a new knowledge from their lecturer. For participants, I hope you can enjoy and participate in the entire conference agendas. Finally, I expect and hope that Professor Jamal Wibowo can open the second incredible FEB UNS. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Professor Joko Suharjanto. The next session is opening remarks from the Rector of Universitas 11 Maret to Professor Jamal Wibowo. The stage is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. The Honorable Dean and Vice Dean of Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas 11 Maret, the distinguished speakers, Professor Dr. Beni Cahyono from Coventry University, United Kingdom, Aranka Ignatiak Shuk, PhD from Nicolaus Copernicus University, Poland, Associate Professor Dr. Felix Tercian Tan from UNSW, Austria, Professor Dr. Arif Ansori Yusuf from Universitas Padjadjaran and President of IRSA, Agus Ganesha Rahyuda PhD from Universitas Udayana, Retno Tanding Suryandari PhD from Universitas 11 Maret. The Honorable Organizer of the second incredible Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas 11 Maret, Perhimpunan Pelajar Indonesia Sedunia, Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Shah Kuala, Faculty of Economic and Business Universitas Udayana, Faculty of Economic Universitas Tidar, Journal Economic Malaysia, the honorable participant and communities. Regional economic development has widely been discussed among scholars to reveal to current issues at local economic sustainability, natural resources and environment, and local green economy. In particular, the information and communication technology and sustainability business will enhance growing the local economy in the long run. Therefore, the current issues and research challenge of the economic development, information technology, and sustainable business need to be present in deep. Universitas 11 Maret, as one of the high-ranking university and Indonesia pays more attention on the issues. Faculty of Economic and Business of Universitas 11 Maret has picked up the organize of interesting issue of regional economic development, information technology, and sustainable business in an international conference on August 25 to 26. The international conference is well known as the second incredible or international congress on regional economic development, international technology, and sustainable business. It will be held but offline in Alana Hotel and online using Zoom, cloud meeting, and YouTube channel. Remarkably, I highly appreciate to distinguished keynote speaker and invited speaker. Furthermore, Universitas 11 Maret will support all organizers of the second Incredible to prepare and organize to the third Incredible in the next years. I hope the participants can keep up the whole international conference agenda during 2 days. Finally, by saying, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I open the second Incredible FEB UNS. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Jamal Wiwoho. Dear all participants, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving to the keynote session. Our first keynote speaker is Aranka Ignacia Sus, PhD. Aranka Ignacia Sus, PhD, is a Vice Dean of International Cooperation and Development, Faculty of Economic Science and Management, Nicolaus Copernicus University, Poland. Her specializations are in economic policy and regional studies. To Aranka Ignacia Sus, PhD, time is yours.
Welcome, distinguished organizers and all the guests of the conference. This year I was able to visit Indonesia, unfortunately not Surabaya, but I was very close to Yogyakarta, so I would like to welcome you and I really hope that it will be a really incredible conference. And I would like to introduce myself a little and then start my presentation. I hope everything will go smoothly. A very warm welcome here from Europe. It's on 3:30 here, so it is quite challenging for me. I hope everything will be okay. Okay, so first of all, I would like to share my slides. Is it okay? Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
My slides? Okay.
Yeah, we do.
I hope my field. I come from the name of the city is Toro, and because our legacy, because UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List. And we are famous for one of our inhabitants. You can see on the picture Nicolas Copernicus, who is also the patron of my university, a famous astronomer. As for my agenda, the agenda of my presentation, I would like to talk first a little bit about Poland and its geopolitical situation. Why am I able to talk from the EU perspective, and what are the differences between the EU countries, and then how we overcome all the problems, maybe not yet fully overcome, connected with the current pandemic, and how the year 2020 came with the new threats to our societies and economies in Europe. So first of all, Poland and its location, I hope we all are familiar with the name, but what is Central and Eastern Europe, and how come that we are in the EU? OECD usually, when it calls for the name Central and Eastern Europe, talks about the countries of the region that are the members of the EU, and you can see they are listed on the slide. But this is not the whole picture, because not only those countries that now are the members of the EU comprise Central and Eastern Europe. When we address such common sources like Wikipedia, you can see that other countries are also included in the Central and Eastern Europe, and they are not the part of the EU. Among them, of course, countries that are not so integrated yet, but some of them are applying also for membership in the EU. As for the view from Indonesia, I was looking for the term Central and Eastern Europe in Indonesian sources. And there is one annual event organized by Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it usually took place in Bucharest in Romania, and it was a kind of forum for trade and business. And as you can see here, Central and Eastern Europe was quite wide, as it covered also Russia, Ukraine, and Turkey. So you look like in more general picture. When we say about the Central of Europe, really it is like this, that we look for some centers, and this is something what can be found in tourism. You can also let's say, visit the tourism center that I call the center of Europe. They are located in Ukraine, they are located in Belarus, Austria, Czech Republic, Estonia, and of course in Poland and other countries. So this is the place that I come from. But the countries of my region, they have different paths when it comes to strategies of development. Some of them are integrated with the EU, as I mentioned, some of them outside. This is kind of important as an introduction. When I talk about the conflict in Ukraine, Poland is among the countries that are integrated with the EU. We joined this union on 1st of May 2004. You can see what countries join and what countries of the region are candidates. From this year, Ukraine and Moldova are also candidate countries. And of course, in the region, we have a lot of groups and organizations that work for mutual benefit because we want to stay together and negotiate with our partners. This is the CESE initiative or Visegrad Group. When we talk about Poland, Poland is one of the, I must say, attractive direction for inflow of foreign investments. We are a reliable business partner, mostly because of our membership in international organizations. Of course, we are not the main partner even in the region of Central and Eastern Europe, so I prepared some data that is available on the website of this forum that I mentioned, and you can see that Poland is in the fourth place, of course, because of the commodities, Russia, Turkey, and Ukraine are here in the lead. But when we talk about the development, of course, Poland is more developed, at least when we talk about GDP per capita, when we compare it to Russia or to Ukraine. This is even more true. So this is like an invitation, like a kind of showing what is the perspective where I come from. And of course, as the whole world, Poland and the European Union and the Central and Eastern Europe countries suffer from the consequences of the pandemic. We can clearly call it a crisis. I would like to show you the data proving that there are some differences when we compare global financial crisis and the crisis of the trained in using all the instruments that we have now. But generally, as you can see, the statement by the Nobel Prize winner Joseph Stiglitz, those at the top are enriched at the direct expense of those at the bottom, somehow are true in the turbulent times. But when we thought that slowly the pandemic will be overcome, the February 2022 came in Europe and brought new threats to societies and economies. And I would like briefly to mention some consequences of the war in Ukraine. Probably for you it seems quite distant, but the consequences that we see will be felt also in Indonesia and other parts of the war. Of course, you are all aware what happened half a year before. Yesterday we celebrated the Ukrainian Independence Day. And this aggression of Russia to Ukraine was condemned internationally, and many countries imposed sanctions of Russia, what also caused a lot of economic consequences, as companies, some of them at least, withdrew their operations from Russia and Belarus. Probably most of us who travel suffer from suspending some airline operations. But of course, this is clearly understood in Europe that it must be done like this, because we really meet the people that are coming from Ukraine and talk about situation that is seen there. Of course, probably some of you heard about the situation, how Poland reacted to this aggression. The fact that we reacted is quite clear because we are neighbors, so the inflow of refugees was directly to our territory. Probably about 3 million Ukrainian refugees, mostly women and children, stayed in Poland. We took a lot of efforts on the country and individual level even to support Ukraine. You can see the monument of Nicholas Copernicus in Toruń with the Ukrainian flag. So this is something which is a clear reaction to this situation that is happening on our neighbors' territory. And of course, this situation will have a substantial impact on the global economy, because it will clearly reduce global growth, raise global problems. Right now we record very high rates of inflation, disruption, and supply shocks of certain markets. And over the next years, it will, of course, especially influence the neighboring countries, so the Central and Eastern Europe, the EU, Europe, but also the world, because we are a global village, and this is very true. We can see it right now. So, of course, the war in Ukraine will have a much greater impact on the neighboring countries, but this is quite clear as we see the influx of refugees, and also those countries are dependent on Russian gas. So this is something which we have to take into account. Russia is a major exporter of energy and industrial metals. Russia and Ukraine together supply over 25% also of world export of wheat. And also you can feel it because in the region, Russia and Ukraine, together with Turkey, are your primary leading partner when we talk about that trade. So also because of this. Of course, we will suffer, but the whole world will suffer as well because of the destabilization, the food insecurity, high prices of energy, and so on. The economist called this situation the third asymmetric shock. That's why I wanted to start with the financial crisis, then pandemic, and then the consequences of the war in Ukraine, because this is the third sudden change of economic condition that affect some of the probably all of us will feel some consequences. Here in Europe, we monitor situation very strongly because we feel it, and we are afraid that it can get worse. And to be quite frank, when I saw the results of the summer 2022 interim economic forecast prepared by the European Commission, I must tell that many of the negative risks that were included in the spring report have materialized, and the war came with upward pressures on energy and food commodity prices. So this is really feeding the inflation pressure. So this is something which we are all witnessing here, because we pay more and more for energy and for food and other products that are important for each person and each company. And the forecasts are like this. As you can see, that with inflation in 2002, still we will reach the let's say records. We have not recorded such high numbers for inflation for so many years, but right now we have this peak of 8.3, 8.4, and that is forecasted year to year in the third quarter of 2022. So these are the forecasts, and probably they will be materialized. But still, we hope that in 2023, the numbers will improve. So this is the forecast prepared by the European Commission. And the forecast that I showed it was general, but of course the situation is very different when we look at the map and the individual countries, the countries that are located in the Central and Eastern Europe. That's why I needed that long introduction, will suffer the most, as you can see from the inflation. And as our Commissioner for Economy said, of course, this is a very difficult time for the European Union, probably also for the rest of the world as well. And still, to navigate these troubled waters today, in his opinion, Europe must show leadership with 3 words defining our policies. So solidarity, sustainability, and security. So these are 3 important elements for us. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I will gladly answer all the questions you may have. I will also leave the presentation for you, so you can see the numbers and you can read the sources that are mentioned in my presentation, because it is very rich material when we talk about statistical data and so on. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Aranka Ignatius, PhD, for the sharp and smart presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear all participants, now we invite Professor Beni Cahyono to join us to deliver keynote speech. Professor Beni Cahyono is a professor of sustainability and supply chain management leader, Sustainable Production and Consumption Cluster, Center for Business and Society, Coventry University, United Kingdom. He obtained his degree in Doctor of Philosophy in Manufacturing System in Cranfield University, United Kingdom, graduated in 2003. To Professor Beni Cahyono, the stage is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Beni Cahyono. I'm Professor of Sustainability and Supply Chain Management at Coventry University in the UK. And I'm very pleased to be invited to deliver this keynote speech entitled Demystifying Supply Chain Innovation, Implications of the Circular Business Models. And I'm grateful to be invited by the organizing committees of the Second International Conference on Regional Economic Development, IT and Sustainable Business, hosted by the Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas 11 Maret. So if you look at supply chain, what is a supply chain? A supply chain is no more or no less than a link between a supplier and a customer. So here you can see a customer comes to a shop buying dates, lots of dates, and when the supplier fulfills the demand of these customers, we can say that the goal of supply chain is achieved. So if we then look at the link between customer and supplier, and then we repeat those links or those chains, then we have the full supply chain from supplier at the end-to-end supplier or supplier of the manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and a customer. And therefore, we can say that definition of the supply chain to be a set of 3 or more companies directly linked by 1 or more of the upstream and downstream flows of products, services, finances, and information. But the important thing here is that the ultimate goal is to match supply and demand with the lowest total cost. But if the goal of supply chain is simply to match supply and demand, what makes supply chain complex? And there are many reasons for this. So the first reason is that in reality, it is not a supply chain. It is a network of suppliers and customers. So these too many suppliers make the supply chain complex. So customers may have more than one suppliers. Of course, the suppliers can also serve more than one customers. And the second reason is that because of the customer demand itself. So if a customer wants to drink a bottle of Coke, then this bottle of Coke has to taste like Coke, and also it has to be available immediately, and it has to be reasonably cheap. So these 3 elements of quality, availability, and cost determines or makes supply chain complex. So let's take a look at that. So product quality. Our friends, our colleagues in manufacturing, they are trying to or striving to build such a good quality products by ensuring, for instance, good quality of raw materials and good quality of production processes. However, when the products are produced, it is actually beyond the 4 walls of manufacturing, because it also depends on the quality of how we handle the products, particularly if our products are fragile. And then it also depends on the quality of transporting the products. It also depends on quality of storing the product. So the quality of the product will depend on many things. And then we talk about availability or time. It means that the time to make the products or the production time. So again, our colleagues in manufacturing always strive to produce the product as quickly as possible. However, it also depends on the time to handle the products, be they inside the warehouse or within the transportation network to reach the customer. And then when we look at the element of cost, certainly it is depending on the cost of raw materials and the cost of productions. However, the cost of transporting the products, cost of warehouse, cost of labor to handle the product, and cost of storing the product, this cost will also contribute to the total cost of the supply chain. And therefore, like I said to you before, when we define the supply chain as matching the supply and demand, we need to ensure that not only it's actually delivered or fulfilled with at lowest total cost, but also fastest delivery while maintaining the quality of our products. However, maintaining this cost, quality, and delivery often not easy or often difficult due to disturbances. And let's take a look at the notable disturbances to today's supply chain. So we all remember about 2 years ago or 3 years ago that problems with pandemics, and therefore we were unable to find our products. For instance, we ran out of antibacterial hand sanitizers, toilet papers, food, bread, and so on, due to the change of customer demand. In Texas, in February 2021, we know that Texas is a hot country, but when it was hit by the winter, it was hit really badly, and that causes the disturbances of electricity, which then subsequently disturbed the productions of $1 display driver chips, which again subsequently disturbed the manufacturing of LCD displays and also cars. Of course, you will remember too that the problem in the Suez Canal also disturbing the global supply chain. However, what happens recently, for instance, in the UK, we have the introduction of the so-called right to repair law, which means that customers has a right to be supplied by the manufacturers at least once, so that their products, for instance, dishwashing machines, can be prolonged. But if you look at the disturbances that are predominantly external, if you remember that those problems caused by winter, caused by pandemic, tends to be external. However, sometimes the disturbances in our supply chain may also be caused by our own or internal reasons. For instance, this business model, the change of business model from delivering the product to delivering a combination of integrated product and services or product service systems often disturb our supply chain too. So product service system essentially is a business model where the OEM delivers the performance or functions of the product rather than the product itself. So let's take a look at an example of a traditional purchasing of an excavator. So to buy this excavator or tractor, the customers will buy or will pay cash, perhaps, or credits or whatever it is. And as a result of that, and the customers will receive the product. Then the customers can use this product to do whatever they want. For example, to dig holes for construction projects. However, over a long period of time, as this product is owned by the customer, then the customer is in charge or is responsible to monitor the condition of the asset, to maintain or to produce spare parts. Or in other words, the customers is in charge or is responsible to pay for these so-called overhead costs. However, if the customer is buying an excavation capability, still the customers buy cash, and the customer may receive the product itself or the excavator itself, or the customer may receive the whole. then if the customer receives the excavator, and the customer can use the excavator to dig a hole. But because the product being delivered remains within the manufacturers or belong to the manufacturers, then the manufacturers will be responsible to monitor the assets, to provide the maintenance, as well as to provide the spare parts. And this is what we know by the basic or the fundamentals of product service systems, where the customers only buy the functionality or the features of a product. When the OEM changed or shifted from delivering or selling products to selling product service systems, it certainly changed the structure of the supply chain. So let us take a look at the implications of that. Because now there are more, or there's an interesting activities within the supply chain, whereby the supply chain traditionally is a cost center, because we try to reduce the cost of supply chain. Then by moving from a product business model to product service system business model, we then innovate our supply chain. And we have the concept of innovation and entrepreneurial supply chain. So the entrepreneurial supply chain, or the change of costing model in supply chain, is because of the OEM that has to repair the asset. Remember that the asset remains or belongs to the OEM or the manufacturers, and at some point in time that the asset will need to be repaired, and then the asset may need to be refurbished, maybe dismantled, and maybe remanufactured, before being brought back to the circulation. So there is a change here, whereby in the past, where the OEM is selling products and they only need to concern or to think about the forward logistics aspects of this, but when they are changing from delivering the product to delivering product service systems, then they will need to think about how to bring back these products to the manufacturers, or we're thinking about the reverse logistics. And this is where the ideas of circular economy is very crucial in this transformation process. But before we look at the circular economy, let's take a look at the other end of circular economy, which is the linear economy. So the linear economy is an economic model whereby we take resources from Mother Earth in terms of minerals, and then we make some products, for example, this aluminum bar, and from this aluminum bar, we manufacture cans of Coke. And then we fill the Coke. When we drink the Coke, then we throw away the cans, or we dispose it off. This is an economic model where we rely on a product, we rely on the availability of cheap, easily accessible materials and energy, and therefore customers are encouraged to buy more as the product life cycle is short. And this cradle-to-grave model or economic model is certainly not sustainable. How to make it more sustainable? Then perhaps when we finish, or when the product reaches end of life, perhaps we could collect it, we could reuse it whenever possible, we could repair it, we could remanufacture it, and also we could recycle before we throw it in incineration or landfill. So this particular mechanisms is also known as the circular economy. So the circular economy is an industrial economy, but unlike the linear economy, the circular economy is restorative and also regenerative. So we can regenerate and we can restore our product. So there are three principles of circular economy. The first one is that we want to minimize the consumption of finite resources and raw materials in the manufacture of products. So if we do not need the product, perhaps we could delay it. We could delay the production of that product. However, if we do need the product, then we need to manufacture the product. We need to use the product at their highest utility and value by maximizing the recirculations. Again, when the product reaches end of life, we need to be able to recover that product to minimize the content that could end up in landfill or incineration. So this model is also known as cradle to cradle. When talking about circular economy, you can take a look at the www.ellenmacarthurfoundations.org. This foundation created the diagram called butterfly diagram. And on this particular diagram, you can see there are two types of nutrients, two types of materials, technical nutrients or technical materials, and also biological materials. So the idea or the focus of the right-hand side of this diagram, the blue one, is maximizing the recirculation. And then the focus of the left-hand side, the green one, is perhaps maximizing the cascading, reducing pollution, and also waste. So in order for us to be able to implement the business model, then we do need to understand the types of business models of circular economy. So there are a number of business models, but in this particular talk, I'm going to talk about these 5 business models. The first one is called dematerialization. Dematerialization means that we replace physical infrastructure or product and asset with digital content. So perhaps you will be familiar with these slides. In the past, we watched movies through DVD or Blu-ray. Now we watch movies through Netflix subscriptions. Similarly, in the past, well, still probably, we read news from papers, and that's why it's called newspapers. Then nowadays, we perhaps reading news more from our smart devices, iPads, and so on. So the second business model is called product or service on demand. Again, this supports the idea that we have to minimize the use of resources. So the idea is that we produce products or services only on demand. So technologies such as 3D printing and also additive manufacturing indeed support these business models, because then we do not need to manufacture or to produce on demand, but rather when the we do not need to produce on stock or for stock, but rather we produce our products on demand. The next business model is called recovery of secondary materials or byproduct. Perhaps for most of you from Indonesia, you should be very familiar with this business model. And this is the second-hand business model whereby you recover products and you make that product or you turn that product into something else. So you must be familiar with pasar loak. So that means that you can get this product. The next business model is repair, refurbish, remanufacture, and recondition. Again, developing countries are perhaps more advanced in this business model because they have done. They tend to repair, refurbish products as the labor cost is reasonably low. The last business model is the product service systems. I mentioned to you early on how to purchase the product as a basis of product service systems, buying the features or buying the performance of that product rather than buying the product itself. When we look at the left-hand side of this butterfly diagram, we are talking about minimizing waste, minimizing pollution, and also maximizing cascading mechanisms. Food supply chain is certainly an example of this because obviously it's really difficult to recycle food. However, reducing food waste, maximizing the cascade mechanisms in food so that food can be turned into the product before reaching the end of life, it is possible to do that. If you look at the idea is that then what we want to do is we want to increase the products. And one way to do that is by maximizing the yield and minimizing the waste. So here we are trying to minimize the waste by using the so-called agri-food waste hierarchy. And these hierarchies consist of a number of steps, starting off from preventing food waste from happening or from occurring in the first place. And then secondly, we try to divert food products to other channels when the food is reaching end of life, and then process food into some other means, some other forms, perhaps turn into herbal medicine or turn into donation. That is still, the green color means that they are still suitable for human consumption. But then when these food is not suitable for human consumption, then it may be channeled to other industry as byproducts. For example, animal feed, for energy recovery, for biofertilizers or composting, before the remaining of this waste being disposed of. So this is a model of agri-food supply chain of the future, whereby we use the principles of circular economy. So here, for example, you have these growers growing agriculture products, and then the products will be distributed to the retailers and sold to the customers. So what's interesting here is that in the middle part of this supply chain, you'll see lots of cascading mechanisms, right from sending these products to the traditional markets, to food processing industry, to herbal medicine industry, to the community maybe, or channeled as to other industries as byproducts that may be used by cosmetic industries, also animal feeds, before being either disposed of or being recovered through the energy recovery operations. And this is where you can see that the reverse logistics, when it becomes compost or biofertilizers, this product can be turned back or brought back to the farmers. Recently, we are working on how to understand or how to know whether we can implement circular economy in agri-food or agriculture products. And we identified a number of capabilities here, the natural resource-based view capabilities that are mapped to the principles of circular economy. So knowing or being able to map our capabilities to the principles, it will then allows us to achieve or to attain the outcomes from implementations of circular economy. For instance, to reduce the food loss and waste, increase food security, improve price stability, improve resilient economy, preserving natural resources, and also reduce greenhouse gas emission. So what we are talking about here in a few minutes is that by implementing circular business model, for instance, product service systems, we are actually changing the shape and the forms of traditional supply chain from cost centers, perhaps to become a bit more on the revenue center. So, and this is possible by opening up new business models, for instance, the circular economy business models, and also with the addition of innovation and entrepreneurial supply chain. Entrepreneurial supply chain means that the innovation actually adds values. For instance, again, revenue generation. So a combination of revenue generation and cost reduction will then ensure that we can improve or we can increase the profit. More often, when we talk about product service systems, we also talk about the so-called service supply chain, where the main goals are to create value in addition to the traditional quality, cost, and delivery goals. And there are a number of archetypal service supply chains available. So with that, I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Benny Cahyono, for the insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, and all participants, our third keynote speaker is Associate Professor Felix Chan Thian. Associate Professor Felix Tan is the founder of Unova, a Disciplinary Research and Development Lab at UNSW Australia, to Associate Professor Felix Tan. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And please allow me to spend for a second time to bring my screen up. Thanks for the invitation. First of all, it's a delight to be here speaking to you about digital transformation and work that I do. As Mr. Gabriel mentioned, I'm Associate Professor of Information Systems here at the UNSW Business School. And as you know, information systems are really about focus on technology that converts raw data into usable information. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is what's happening in our region that requires us to think about this discipline of equity, and that's what are some of the things research opportunities that we can work together on. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully everyone see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Yes, maybe someone can check.
Yes, we do.
Yes, okay, good, fantastic. Yeah. So the topic I'm going to talk about is digital transformation in Asia Pacific systems social change. Some time was the mention. I was a partner of the Translational Research Strategy that focuses on design for I'm also program for a new initiative called Ask My Business Research. Because most of the members see that there are a lot of opportunities associated with digital transformation in the region, and we really hope that through concerted efforts of government, us as education partners, industry partners, we solve some of the world's
Udah ya Pak, udah tak kirim ke Bu Anu, yang SPJ kemarin. Rekeningnya apa Pak? Saya. Dan jenengan rekeningnya apa?
Can get involved with us at the ASEAN Business or with us at the university level. So a little bit about myself. So I've been a information systems researcher for well over 15 years. As I mentioned, the discipline is focused on the conversion of raw data into usable information. So we study technology, people, and processes that are involved with that. Over the last decade, my primary research activities focuses on developing case studies using largely qualitative primary data. So what we do is we work with governments and businesses on the ground to try to understand how does digital technologies transform them and the ecosystem that they serve, right? And what are some of the impacts for business and societal change as a result? We use those case studies to then explain to our partners and to industry and government and policymakers to help them develop strategies of how to engage and leverage with the technology in order to improve, obviously our quality of life and improve their business performance. I presently serve on the editorial board on a number of major journals in my field and broadly in the business field. So I'm very lucky enough to have worked with many partners across the region and around the world to review quality papers. And I noticed that part of the intention for this conference of yours is to develop research capabilities amongst your academics as well as research capability in general for the university. So, journals are part of that journey. So I'm very pleased or blessed to have had the opportunity to work on many of the work in our field. My research lab, as I said, focuses on translational interdisciplinary research to do with using digital technologies to improve solutions and to improve the quality of life. So, and we take on government and business projects that are roughly around 6 months to a year, just because of the agile methods that we adopt and the innovation approaches that we use. Businesses like to get their solutions fast. So therefore, the translational work is very, very important to us. And also, finally, I'm very blessed and lucky to have had the opportunity to share some of the research with many folks. And it allowed me to be recognized by a number of media outlets, including the Australian magazine, who named me the Business Researcher of the Year last year. So what makes me qualified to talk to you today about digital innovation, about technology trends? Just because I've worked with many companies in the region over the last 70 years, I've gone to many of these companies that you see on the screen right now. So one of my first ever case studies was a company called Alibaba, many, many years ago when they were still relatively small. But now, as you know, Alibaba has become one of the world's largest e-commerce marketplaces. And their story is one that is adopted by many, many businesses and companies throughout, which I will explain what it is later as well. So during the last 10 years, I was focusing a lot around the growth of e-commerce in this part of the world, the growth of the marketplace and its ecosystem and platforms involved in this part of the world. Then we look at new business models like collaborative consumption business models that are within the sharing and gig economy. An example of that is the likes of Grab and Gojek that I'm sure you're very familiar with in Indonesia. And we look at how these platforms become very, very big over time. I also started to look a lot into the creative content space as a result of new business models. So I know Indonesia is a very, very big, I guess, consumer of creative content through various social media platforms. And I also know that Indonesia has a very, very high mobile phone penetration rate. So we're looking at very shorter tail content. So we studied this phenomenon many, many years ago when it started in Japan and Korea. So studied K-pop as an example for many, many years in developing that creative content. We also started to look at the more traditional issues around security and cybersecurity in general, and also some of the companies that are doing risk assessment, compliance, things like that in the region as we move more and more into the digital space. And we also look a lot into financial technology, blockchain, crypto, and things like that. It's interesting cases for how financial technology can change the way we participate in business. And also finally, we look a lot into the social aspects of technology or digital transformation. So where we look at how women in rural parts of Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia are empowered by the use of technology, whether it be marketing analytics, whether it be e-commerce sites, whether it be social media. We look at all of those things as well. Again, we do this as part of the work that, in general with university researchers. So depending on what the project domain is, we have different researchers from different parts of the university. So all industries are affected by digital technologies, but we don't claim to know everything about every kind of business. So therefore, we rely a lot on our other partners across the university to give us the domain knowledge that we need in order to best develop purposeful technology solutions moving forward. Because there are many advanced technologies out there, but many of these technologies that we see today are looking for problems. So when we first went to Indonesia many years ago to try to understand how fintech can improve the livelihood of farmers in Indonesia, for example, we found that it's very difficult for these technologies to take off because in Indonesia, you rely a lot on microfinancing institutions. That's different from Singapore or Australia, where institutionalized banking is the way to work, right? So a lot of things we learn when we do these partnerships on the ground. So what is digital transformation, right? So digital transformation is literally a process. So I wrote about this process in a number of articles that I'm sure you can find online and download. It's a process of technology adoption and use for value creation or value co-creation or value specialization between business entities and organizations that could be from the government, could be from not-for-profit, so on and so forth. But what is important is that digital transformation demands change. It demands change in the business process, it demands change in business models. Has triggered strategic responses from business leaders and managers to change the way that they do business and to change the way they hire and to change the way their operations run, right? So just now there were obviously presentations around supply chains. So supply chains are heavily disrupted right now by technology, and disruption to the supply chain has enabled new value propositions every day. So the downstream and the upstream data, information, and financial flows are being sort of facilitated by different types of technologies, because it's becoming and that if you are not at least thinking about how to digitalize your business model, the likelihood of you surviving, not even thriving, it's very, very hard, especially if your product and service is one that is not a core commodity, and also the fact that if it's a digital good or an asset or a service, you have to be thinking about digitalizing that. But why? Well, because the world has moved on very, very quickly. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated digital transformation of the organizations and the individual. So many of you on this call right now are joining in, of Zoom and Teams or Google Meets and whatever, all of which were not just readily available 5-6 years ago, or not heavily used 5-6 years ago. But the fact that a lot of time and money has been saved by not organizing in-person events goes to show the importance of this pandemic-induced digital transformation, right? And then obviously also the fact that because of this engagement, the growth of unstructured data has gone through the roof. So you and I are more, I guess, gravitate, are more attracted to short videos, the likes of TikToks, the likes of ITE and all of that platforms that curate small bites of information and data, YouTube as well, right? So the growth of unstructured data has gone through the roof, right? So right now you're able to, where in the past it could be through word of mouth that you attract a population of people, now it's a post, a tag, right? A short video. So with the phenomenal growth of mobile and social media, many organizations are needing to realize that they need that online presence. And not just an online presence in Web 1.0 and Web 2.0, but it has to be seamless. So it has to appear good online and offline. Okay? So right now, there are many countries across Asia-Pac that are introducing cashless systems to enable the transformation to a city that can engage effectively with technology and effectively in business, right? However, it has also exposed a lot of problems in the digital infrastructure of many countries that nationally, there are still a lot of problems to be fixed in order to enable the rapid acceleration and growth, right? So having fast-speed internet is just one, right? And we're talking about many other things that involve, right, with introducing cashless payment systems, for example. Okay? With every technological adoption, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. Okay, where there's a bunch of people that are able to financially participate through the technology, there's a bigger bunch of people that are left out. And this is what we call the digital divide. Okay, so the problem of financial participation is the apparent gap that is created by the lack of data and information and technology literacy between certain populations and the other amongst certain populations and against the people that are more tech savvy. So across our largest countries, Indonesia, China, and India, there's still large populations of unbanked. That means people grow up without understanding what's a bank account, right? And in our research over the last few years, and we shared this with the FinTech Festival, Global FinTech Festival in Singapore over a period of years now, that the underbanked are likely to be the older, female, poor, and rural people in the region. So the issue of financial participation is real. The issue of digital transformation amongst this population is also real. And also, when we go in, as I explained just now, when we go into a new community, it's very easy for us to say that the technology will definitely improve your lives, right? Because we come from a more privileged side and the more, I would say, where we are exposed to the advanced technologies and things like that. However, we must also, and I always tell my students that are returning to Indonesia, that are returning to ASEAN, that are returning to other countries of Asia Pac, is to appreciate the traditions, the norms, the social hierarchy, and how people do business on the ground in order to sell their product or sell their service or sell their technology, right? And if you do that, you'll be successful. If you don't do that, you will not be successful. And a lot of my students have the issue of selling their products well because of the fact that they don't understand what happens on the ground. They bring something from the Western civilization, Western world, either Europe, or they study in the US, or they study in Australia, and they say, look, this works there, so this will definitely work in Indonesia. It doesn't work that way. So the companies that have done well, and we're very proud of a few of them, are those that really appreciate what goes on the ground. Okay. So what has happened, right? Because I promised to talk about lessons learned and those trends, right? So one is, and I'll present three key things here. One is the rise of e-commerce marketplaces, offline to online experience, and new retail. So today, these are the companies that are able to get you products and services within a matter of hours or days, right? Without you having to step outside your house. Yeah. So this model obviously is extremely helpful when we were all isolating in our homes. Okay. So, I mean, Gojek is not there, but Gojek and Grab also has the same sort of service offering as these folks here, but these are sort of the ones that we visited and studied. So these companies are what we call platforms, right? So there are multi-sided platforms that are technology enabled that do two things. One is to reduce the search cost for the end user, the consumer, and the search cost of the supplier. So previously, all of them would have to pay a cost to go to a marketplace in order to meet each other. But now through these platforms, they don't have to. Two is there is network effect amongst the suppliers. So in the past, one shop could be selling one thing and then you have to go to a shop doing another thing. Now on the platform, you could see the same shop recommending you to buy related things to that particular product. So this also creates a network effect amongst the suppliers in order to generate better products that would sort of cover all the bases that the consumer would want. So the network effect is a very important effect that is generated as a result of the rise of e-com marketplaces. The other thing is, the second thing is the growth of collaborative consumption businesses. That means, what is collaborative consumption? It means what is yours is mine and what is mine is yours. So resources are shared, okay? So the biggest manifestation of that is when you book a car or taxi, you order through Grab and Gojek, and the car could probably be owned by someone else, but you are taking temporary ownership of that particular car or asset, okay? So these are the other companies that are facilitating that collaborative consumption of resources. So say, for example, I also have something to rent out. I go on the platform and someone else comes in and rent it off us, right? And these collaborative consumption businesses, what it does is that it gives people the benefit of temporary ownership without the burden of actually owning them. It creates new product service systems and marketplaces that previously we never seen before, right? So an example that is on screen right now is Gojek, and the other one is iGrow. So iGrow is a startup in Depok in South Jakarta that we visited some time ago, and they had an interesting business platform that connects the landowners with end users and also farmers. So each of them have deficiencies in the business and for the business, and each of them have obviously contributions that they can make to growing the food ecosystem. So it's a very, very interesting product service system that was created as a result of collaborative consumption, because the farmer has skills that could be shared, the landowners have land that could be shared, and obviously people, for us looking for dividends, we have money to contribute to. The previous two scenarios led to this new business ecosystems and led to this new creation of new content. So as I said just now, we studied a lot of that new media and new content creation in Korea and in Japan. So we looked at a lot of the growth of the OTTs and growth of the creative culture content, that is K-pop, for example. So we met with a lot of stakeholders of SM Entertainment, JYP, Kakao, Line, Twitter, so on and so forth. We met with a number of bands as well, like 17, Red Velvet, all of that, early ones, right? And they had obviously many interesting stories about how the ecosystem grew as a result of the connections that they made. So this leads to a new ecosystem such that new business model such that you as a consumer also can participate in the active creation of the content. So you can decide what sort of ending the movie has, or what sort of ending the drama has. And this has grown tremendously, right? And in a way that K-pop has sort of dominated J-pop, C-pop, even Western pop, right? So you see, it's a very, very quick growing market. And what it has created is a lot of complementary ecosystems. So social media influencers came out of that, right? So influencers came out of that. Influencers that sell products on e-commerce marketplaces came out of this growth of the creative content industry. And what is important now as a result is that as we are more exposed to this side, right, more businesses have to put customer or the consumer in the center of their brand experience. Because the marketing analytics people will tell you that the trending social influencers are the ones that are selling the most product and value for their investors or for their suppliers, right? Or for their brands, right? And it could be instantaneous. It could be within a matter of hours. So we we interviewed a lot of them in China and States. Some of them were making the equivalent of an apartment, how much you pay for an apartment in Australia or in Singapore and China within a matter of hours, rather than a matter of years. So they can earn ridiculous amount of money for a very, very short period of time if they know obviously how to package properly. So we're coming to the end. So right now, the work that we do is really towards economic and social impact, and we really want to encourage everyone on this call to really think about the societal norms, the challenges that you face in order to find out what are the key things that technology or digital transformation can help you with, whether it be saving, whether it be transference of skills, whether it be participating in an ecosystem, so on and so forth. Here are some of the results of some of the research that we do. So some of the research are sponsored by the government. This particular one that we did in Indonesia was to grow the literacy of women entrepreneurs in Indonesia. So over the past 6-7 years, we traveled to a lot of parts of rural Indonesia to with our colleagues at UIN and also in UI and Social Trust Fund, to be able to come up with a set of stories around how women across these rural regions were able to use technology to sell the produce, sell their crafts, and sell the items, the creative things that they do on the ground. So that, and I was told that there's going to be a book launch, top right-hand corner, pretty soon on some of the results. So that's great. We also have a number of journal papers on that. And the work is because we partner with a lot of people. We partner with central banks, we partner with microfinancing institutions, we partner with farmers, we partner with universities like yourselves, we partner with business people like those in the call, we partner with social entrepreneurs. Because all of us together, collectively, we grow the ecosystem, we grow digital transformation. So that's really it from me. If you like to get involved with us and like to get involved with the ASEAN Business Research, please feel free to reach out to myself and my team at this email, unova@unsw.edu.au. Just even if you want to be part of the mailing list for some of our events happening in Indonesia and across ASEAN, because we are planning quite a lot with our partners. We have a series of events with UI, with UIN, and with BINUS coming up very soon. So please, if you want to participate, if you're in Jakarta and you want to participate in some of these events, please feel free to reach out to us. So with that, I will stop sharing now, and also obviously happy to answer any questions. I know I have not a lot of time left. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Felix Tan, for the insightful presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are moving to the next session, which is plenary session. And the moderator in this session is Ibu Amelia Choya. Ibu Amelia is the student of Economics Doctoral Program, Faculty of Economic and Business, Universitas 11 Maret. To Ibu Amelia Choya, the stage is yours.
Gimana, Pak? Iya, soalnya tadi pembicaranya minta ada pertanyaan. Harusnya kan Ibu nggak ada. Iya.
Cek.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Winnie Perwito Suci. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Rector of Universitas 11 Maret, Profesor Dr. Jamal Wiwoho, SHM. The Honorable Dean, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas 11 Maret, Profesor Dr. Andes Joko Suharjanto, MCom Hons, PhD. The Honorable Keynote Speakers, the Honorable Invited Speakers, Profesor Dr. Arif Ansori Yusuf, Mr. Retno Tanding Suryandari, PhD, Mr. Agus Ganesha Rahayuda, PhD, and all the distinguished participants. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Amelia Joya as moderator. Our topic in today's agenda is the regional economic development, information technology, and sustainable business, current issue and research challenges. Before we go to the presentation, I will explain how to ask questions or discuss. The discussion will be start after the third speaker delivers the presentation. To all participants, you can directly raise your hand. For the participants who join through Zoom, you can write down your questions on the chat box, or you can turn the mic and video on, and please inform the question is addressed to whom. There will be a door prize for 5 chosen participants. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our first speaker, Professor Dr. Arif Ansori Yusuf from Universitas Padjadjaran. Good morning, Professor Arif. Okay, before I will deliver Professor Dr. Arif Ansori Yusuf profile. Professor Dr. Arif Ansori Yusuf is a lecturer in Universitas Padjadjaran and President of IRSA, International Regional Science Association. He holds bachelor degree from Universitas Padjadjaran, master degree from University College London, and doctoral degree from Australian National University. His research interest is in poverty, inequality, and natural resource management. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Dr. Arif Ansori Yusuf. In 30 minutes, time is yours.
Thank you.
Saya naik ke podium.
Oke. Ini kayaknya. Thank you. Can someone put up the slides or not?
Okay, please put your project.
While we're waiting, first of all, I would like to thank you for the UNS that has invited me to come here. This is my first public speech that is not online. So it's a great opportunity for me to be here. My talk today will be based on 2 recent publications that me and co-authors just published. If anyone can put the slides or not. Okay, yeah. So I would like to give the title of this is a Developer's Dilemma from Global and National Perspective. Next slide, please. So this is the 2 publications that will be the main basis of this talk. So unfortunately, the link, the tag is not so clear. But if you can ask the organizer later on the top of those 2 publications, there is a link where you can download this for free. The book published by Oxford University Press, so I think you should take advantage of this open access book because someone already paid for the open access. It's published by Oxford University Press. And the second one is the recent paper that we just published related to this publication. So next slide, please. Okay, so first from the global perspective that coming from this book. So what is the development challenge that we address on this book? Next slide. So there are a few. Next. I can't read. I can't read it. Oh, this is it. Okay, it's better here. So what is called developer's dilemma? So this is basically, if you are from development economics background, you understand that there is two goals of development. First is you want to have a higher income, okay, but higher income most likely be get from economic growth, and that's economic growth coming from a structural change. So the movement of sectoral share from primary sector to secondary sector and so on, right? But in the development economic theory, there is an old theory which suggests that you can't have economic growth without having inequality at certain point. So the goal of development is basically to address those two so that there is not such trade-off. So it's called, but in most cases, perhaps some people think that this is trade-off. So the two goals is structural transformation, that's the first one, and the second one is inclusive growth, right? So there is a potential tensions between these two goals around this inequality dynamic. So how can we manage this tension? So that's the development challenge. So the core question will be, is there any different variations of structural transformations that happen in developing countries, right? And then if there is an inequality dynamics among those countries' experience, can we or somehow get a different variety that we can learn? Yeah? And then if there is a policy that can be devised, yeah, to address such trade-off, then what will be that policies? So these books cover 9-country comparative case study using a common framework and common data sets. Yeah? So me and my co-authors as the editors of this book gather around 30 more scholars from around the world, leading to this edited volume. Next. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so first, what tools did we use to examine those challenges? Next, please. So we basically create some sort of typology. This typology will try to define the structural transformations. What we define by structural transformation is according to two measures. The horizontal axis is the manufacturing value added share. Is it increasing or decreasing in the stage of development, right? That's the horizontal axis, and then in the vertical axis, the employment share. So the horizontal axis is the output share, and the vertical axis is the labor share, employment share. So whether or not they increase or decrease, right? So then we try to make a typology. We call it primary industry, for example, yeah? This is just example. For example, you will experience what we call primary industrialization if your economy in a certain period experiencing declining value added shares of manufacturing, but increasing employment shares in the manufacturing. In the meantime, for example, if you have the red one, which is declining both value added share and declining both employment shares, then we call it secular deindustrialization. So basically we use this typology to divide certain countries' economic development episodes to fit into this typology. So that's the structural transformation typology. Next. And then, if anyone remember, there is an economist called Simon Kuznets in 1950s, write a very seminal paper regarding this, called Kuznetian tension, that there is a trade-off between economic growth and inequality. But we just don't assume that will happen. So we then tried another typology according to whether or not growth enhancing structural transformation in line with the income inequality, because we understand that it's not always the case, right? So we divide countries according to this typology into 4 groups. Yeah? For example, if you have strong economic growth, but you have strong inequality increase, then we call them strong Kuznetian tension. But on the other hand, if you have that tension but weak, you have growth high, but inequality stable or declining, we call them weak or benign tensions. So we divide this country according to this. And this is the result. I just want to share. The detail, please download the book. The book gives you a lot of lessons learned from many countries. Next. Okay, next. Okay, this is what we found. Just highlight. Okay, so this is structural transformation. So we learn from this book that some pathway of structural transformation are more common than others. For example, 6 out of 9 countries that is available in the chapter of the study have one episode of upgrading industrialization. The upgrading industrialization is the yellow one. And you can see that Indonesia actually experienced those episodes in 1975 to 1985 and 1985 to 1996. That's upgrading industrialization. Most of the country have experienced stall industrialization. So industrialization stall and deindustrializations. Thankfully, Indonesia has not entered the stage of deindustrialization yet, but in year of, you can see here, in 1999 to 2012, or until today, we experience the middle in the typology, which is stall industrialization. And some countries have spent some length of time in one quadrant. So I mean, if some country stuck in one of those quadrant, some country actually stay there for a while. So it's not changing quite dynamically. For example, can I see the next slide, please? Okay, so for example, Indonesia actually in more than 2 decades experiencing upgrading industrialization. South Africa experiencing secular deindustrializations in quite a long period of time. Next, please. Now, what about the tensions? Okay. So, from all these countries that we learned, so we understand that policy matters. It means that inequality is not something inevitable. So, inequality may have impact of policy, but on the other hand, it can also be impacted by policies. Yeah? Some people may suggest this is something related to ideology. Ideology means if you are a socialist-minded countries, then you will have a different inequality spectrum compared to when you are, for example, capitalist-minded countries. But actually, no. Political regimes, in our case study, is not necessarily deterministic. Not always the case. Yeah? If you focus on the bottom right quadrant, which is the one in purple, so that's basically what we typically want. Yeah? So we want to have strong growth enhancing structural transformation, if you see the horizontal axis, but you want a stable or declining inequality. You don't want increasing inequality, and that happens typically in East Asian countries and some Latin America in a certain period. For example, in Thailand in 1980s, in South Africa in 1970s, in Chile in 1960s to 1970s, in Indonesia in 1975, 1996. Next, please. So, I think I skipped this. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is a conclusion from the global perspective from this book, the first part of my talk. Yeah? So the conclusion is somehow along this line. Next. The first is that there exists multiple pathways of structural transformation, and also there exists multiple different inequality dynamics within each of those pathways. So it's more complex than we thought. Okay. The second one is very important. Rising inequality is not inevitable. We can avoid that if we want, but of course, it needs struggles. Yeah, and policy make a difference. And the last one is we need a different policy agenda for broad-based growth, yeah, for each quadrant. And also, we need to carefully understand how policy and inequality interact, because they can go both ways. So that's the conclusion from the global perspective. Now, the second part of the talk, I want to dig deeper more on our own country. Yeah? This is based on the paper that I also published recently. Next, please. Okay, so Indonesia recent development dilemma. So this is more about Indonesia from the beginning of year 2000 onward. As you know, from that global perspective, we see that Indonesia experienced benign Kuznetian tensions during 1970s, 80s, 90s. But once you go into the year of 2000, something different changed, and something different happened. Yeah, next, please. So what we use as a data analysis for this? So we utilize unconstructed more than 7,000 district years observation. So district year observation, so it's a panel data. So district year observations of inequality measured by the Gini coefficients, yeah, and sectoral employment share. This is one of the novelty of this paper, because normally in most of the literatures on structural transformations and inequality, the employment share data has not been used predominantly. Kuznets, when he talked about inequality and structural transformation, he actually literally say labor share of sectors. But since the data is not sophisticated during Kuznets time and onward, people usually use output share, which is not exactly the same thing, right? Not exactly the same thing. So if you look at the paper that link inequality and structural transformation before 2000 or before this paper published, I only found one paper that used labor share. So that's how I see that there's an opportunity to add to the literature when you see that. So we did construct employment shares from 25 years of data of Susenas, and then calculate those. Next, please. Yeah. So this is some of the result that I would like to highlight. So we defined the period into 1990s until 2017, right? And then if you look at more, more long-term span, you can see here that inequality actually increased in all sectors of the economy except financial sector. Why finance different? It's simply because finance is naturally already unequal sector. Whatever happened, because financial sector is very capital intensive, very skill intensive. So those sector is naturally unequal sector. So during the development, it's not really surprising if you can find that this sector does not experience dynamic change. Yeah? As you can see here. Right? So the flatter you are, the more unequal, right? So if you plot this distribution pictures, you see that the more 2017 has flatter curve, meaning that has more higher Gini coefficient, higher coefficient of variation. Okay, So inequality happen in all sectors. That's the first highlight. Next, please. When we divide, because the Kuznets actually divide inequality, can divide the inequalities, the changing inequality source into two components: between inequality, within sector inequality, and between sector inequality. So inequality can happen between sector, but within sector too. Okay, so using what we call Atkinson Index of Inequality from 1992 to 2007, then we try to disentangle these two different contributions. Where is it from, the increase in inequality? We learn actually that within sector inequality dominates, meaning that it's not inequality between sector that change, but in every sector, the inequality actually change. You can see here the red, more red color is inequality. So the between sector, for example, you can see is green all the way through. So it doesn't have any change at much. But within sector inequality change. So it is, so inequality happen in all sectors of the economy. Next, please. Now, I use these cross-district variations to try to see the associations between the share of employment in certain sectors and inequality, right? To see the associations. First of all, maybe some of you are wondering, what is the benefit of having these cross-district variations? Because when Kuznets tell about his story of the Kuznetian dynamic, what he mentioned is actually cross-country variation. Okay, so this is, I think, the contributions. Yeah. Why? Because countries not comparables. They have different institutions. They have a different ideology, different political setting, right? So when you have good enough cross-district variation within one country, then you can actually control or isolate such difference by focusing only what matter, which is the association between sectoral shares. But this kind of analysis will be non-usable if you don't have much variations across districts. For example, if you have a homogeneous economy in one national countries, then this will be useless. Yeah? But Indonesia, I don't know, I have to say thankfully or not thankfully, the gap of income between districts is very wide. Very wide. Yeah? So the inequality between districts is very wide. You have, for example, Papua, which is like some country in sub-Saharan Africa, but you have Jakarta, where per capita income is equivalent to Belgium. Okay, so Jakarta is Belgium, Papua somewhere is sub-Saharan Africa. So that's cross-country variation you got from this data, but you have 7,000 observation instead. Okay, so this cross variation of district then is usable and turn out to be useful. And you can see here that the association is quite interesting. You can see, for example, it actually depends on which sector. Agriculture always declining, finance always increasing, but period matters. Yeah, period matters. Yeah. Next, please. Let me summarize in one table. So this is the summary of the analysis. So you can see here is that if you see the recent time, which is 2001 and 2017, the relationship between share of manufacturing industry and inequality is positive already. Yeah. And the relationship between sector of market services, which is finance, is positive. During 1990s, the relationship between manufacturing sectors and the inequality is negative. So it means in the decade of 1990s and 1980s here, sorry, manufacturing has helped in some way to reduce inequality in Indonesia, which is, I think, is quite intuitive. Yet, In 2000, the effect is reversed, right? So that's what we found. And in Indonesia, this is what also matter. In market service finance, that's positive. Yeah. We also test whether we expect some turning point, because Kuznets expect quadratic relationship, right? Yes, we found statistical significant quadratic relationship, yet when you measure when will be that turning point is, it's still long time, far beyond, let's say, the average of many district income per capita at this moment. Yeah. Next, please. Okay. So, and then this matter, why? Because when we find tension between increasing share of service sectors with an inequality, so Indonesia experience, so that's what we found. And you see that the trend of service industry in Indonesia has been increasing, and I don't see any point in the near future it will be stopping. So it means that if we have a close associations between inequality and service sector or tertiarization, it means that please don't expect that inequality in Indonesia will decline in the near future, because we are experiencing strong in tertiarization at the moment. And when the association of the tertiary sector inequality is high, then don't expect an improvement in inequality in Indonesia in the near decades. I'm not guaranteeing, I'm not pesulap merah, I'm not guaranteeing, but I guess that's what's going to happen. Next, please. Sebentar lagi. Okay. So, first, okay, let me highlight a hypothesis of why this tension happened in Indonesia recently, the inequality. Yeah. First, Indonesia just recover, not from this crisis, but from the 1997 crisis, which is very hard, where the capital are idle. Yeah, capital idle. So the recovery in 2000, people look at this capital idleness and intensify on capital utilization. If you intensify capital utilization, then you use less labor, so you have more inequality. So that's the first hypothesis. The second hypothesis is exchange rate adjustment. Exchange rate adjustment means that you have exchange rate suddenly devalue, and that devaluation of exchange rate actually increase in inequality, because if you have dollars, you are rich, right? And then the more richer you are, the more unequal you are the country. And then the third one is China accession to WTO. Indonesian growth and many of other East Asian miracle countries in 1980s, I think one of the reasons why they grow very well is actually luck. Why? Because Mao Zedong died very late. What I mean is, after the death of Mao Zedong, China liberalized the economy, and when China liberalized the economy, then it occupied all the manufacturing market share of these East Asian miracles. Can you imagine if Mao Zedong died younger? The Korea, the Taiwan, the Indonesia, I don't think it will grow as much, because China will enter the world market earlier. So luck. The last one is technological change. the automation, the robotization that happened. I have another paper about this, but the finding is that Indonesia experiencing early phase of routinization. Early phase of routinization means we start to use less labor, and we start to use labor only for routine task. Sorry, routine, we replace routine tasks by computers. So that's increase inequality. Next, I think this is the last one. So there are two options that is being discussed, yeah, about how to anticipate what's coming. The first is, let's go ahead with tertiarization, and that's too strong to be stopped. Let's face it, but complement it with skill upgrading policies, and then anticipate future of works. Future of works mean routinization and things like that, and improve strong to make it social protection stronger. Personally speaking, this is what I like. Because tertiarization is so strong, it's a market force that cannot be easily deflected by policy, no way. Structural transformation is a strong force. You cannot deflect just one instrument tax or something like that. No, it's a strong force. Don't avoid it, but complement it with skill upgrading, anticipate future of work, and improve social protection. I think that's what my preference. But Bappenas and other parties actually like the second one. They want to make Indonesia reindustrialized. Reindustrialization. We have store industrialization, right? So many people said, we have to reindustrialize. Well, it's good if we can, but I'm a bit pessimistic that we can, because of so many issues. Because of China, for example, is already occupy all of the space of this industrialization. Next, I think that's it. Okay, that's my presentation. I know this is only highlight, but I strongly suggest you to download all of this publication. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Dr. Arif Ansori Yusuf. Very interesting and comprehensive books with title The Developer's Dilemma. This book discusses about analysis inequality that happens in Indonesia and also give recommendation to solve this phenomenon. It is true tertiarization and complement with skill upgrading and reindustrialization. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the second speaker is Ms. Retno Tanding Suryandari, PhD. Good morning, Ms. Retno Tanding Suryandari. Okay, before I will deliver Ms. Retno Tanding Suryandari, PhD profile, Ms. Retno Tanding Suryandari, PhD is a lecturer and head of Master Management Study Program in Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas 11 Maret. She holds bachelor degree from Universitas 11 Maret, master degree from Universitas Indonesia, and doctoral degree from University of North Texas, United States of America. Her research interest is in management, marketing, and logistics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Retno Tanding Suryandari, PhD, in 30 minutes. Time is yours, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semuanya. Ladies, gentlemen, and gentlemen, the audience, I am Tanding, and this is an honor for me to be here, invited, given the opportunity to talk about sustainable business. As we have experienced through the last 2 years, how COVID-19 global pandemic has brought plenty of emotion and feeling, and so many questions whether we can get through this pandemic well and safe, and also feeling the uncertainty. On the same time, actually, we also learning so many new things, technologies, method, new ways, and also the application to accomplish our works, and also another business-related adjustment. We also learned in these last 2 years that we can be productive without having to be in the office room. We learned to simplify and also to get back to the basic in organizing and managing our personal as well as our business matters. One general business strategy that received even before the pandemic hit us together is the attention, received the attention during the pandemic is the sustainability strategy. So I will talk on this about the sustainable business and how the pandemic, the global pandemic, bring us some insight and how this sustainability issue and also the lesson that we learned from the pandemic might be carried over into the present and also future practice of our organizational life as well as the business life. Next, please. So this is the several things that I would like to talk about the principle of the sustainable business, global business trend in adopting sustainability issues, sustainable business in practice, and what COVID-19 pandemic teaches us and where business should move forward from here. So if we talk about the sustainable business, I think the first definition came in 1983, which this definition, in fact, brings some concern about whether the future generation will have a similar privilege of enjoying the high quality of natural environment. But currently and presently, the sustainable business has been defined as doing business without negatively impacting the environment, community, or social as a whole. So in short, when we are talking about sustainability, we are including three factors. The first is people, the second is profit, and the third is planet. The recent issue, some researcher has brought into the discussion the fourth pillar of sustainability, which is people, which is human, which actually equal to the people itself. Next. So when we talk and considering the sustainability issue, what we expect from the business is that the business operator should achieve the right balance between social responsibility, economic profitability, and the environmental friendliness principle. So the business should considering a wide array of environmental, economic, and social factors when making business decisions, and also in the same time monitoring the impact of the business operation, to ensure that short-term profit do not turn into long-term liability. So, what sustainability issues are currently adopted and also embraced by the global business communities? So, right now, currently, global business has adopted several ideas on how to put the sustainability issue into their operation. Most of the global business right now has issuing sustainability report annually, and I think Indonesian company, we are not yet having the sustainability report, but more on the company CSR, what is CSR? Social responsibility, company social responsibility, sorry. And then other than just issuing sustainability report, global business also setting a science-based carbon target, and 1/3 of the European largest public company have pledged to reach net zero by 2015. What we consider as net zero is that the company try to cover their carbon print by investing into several activities that will alleviate their carbon copy production. Also, the expanding the diversity and inclusion efforts, committing funds to fight racial inequality, that lately in this last 5 years we can see that the racial issue has become the main attention around the world, and speaking out on societal issues they used to avoid. Other than that, also the global company has pay attention to democracy issues. And although they think that global climate meeting lately was not satisfactory because some countries in the world, especially some developed country, decided to decrease their participation in fighting the climate change. But they think, this company think that they will take the net zero strategy seriously. So the other issue that also come lately is that the auto industry, the global auto industry, aim to stop producing fossil-based automotive by 2050. So I guess this is, I don't know whether this is a good news or bad news, because some discussion also mentioned if the automobile industry decided to stop their the production of fossil-based automotive and completely transform into renewable energy, there's another issue that will come up. Okay, now after we're talking about the sustainability issue, we move to the what COVID-19 pandemic has taught us so far in these last 2 years. So the beginning of pandemic has taught us that everything is possible to happen, and we never known that we will have to experience this pandemic, and there is no guarantee that in the future there's no more pandemic that will come and hit us. So in the last 2 years, we experienced how we have to work in a limited space, that we have to change the way we interact with our social environment. We have to change the way we work on our assignment and also our works. And some of the issues that come up from that situation is that stress, psychological and mental disorder has come and hit us as well. So other than that, the organization, also the manager learned that compassion and patience are always necessary. So in terms of the human resource of the organization, so instead of in terms of the organization, instead of just put their human resource in a very difficult and stressful situation, in this last 2 years, organization also learn how to be patient, how to show compassion to their human resources, and how they see that during this pandemic, even the lowest level of workers in their organization also become the important contributor to the operation of the organization. So what also become important that we learned during the pandemic is that the leader must learn to listen in order to innovate. So it's not really a secret that in the beginning of the pandemic, some organizations have problem to adjust and to adopt to the new situation that they have to face. And so we can see that some organizations that can adopt smoothly, they can survive. But on the other hand, the organization that have problem with adapting and also have problem with understanding the situation that they face that time, have problem also to maintain their survival. Okay, that was on the human resource side. How about on the other side of the organization? The first that we learn is that the organization must remain adaptive to change. So we always say that adaptive organization is the one that can survive in the long run, but it was in the theory. After these 2 years, we really learned that adaptive organization become flexible in the organization can help the organization to survive in the long run. We can be flexible and do more with less. This is also we learn that we get back to basic. We learn to next month. Sorry. We learn to adapt to the situation where we don't have a complete instrument to carry on our work, and that's we learn without having a complete instrument, we can accomplish our assignment as well. And diversification is key to ensure success. Then the new focus on work-life balance also was experienced by many organizations. So basically, what the company found during the pandemic is that the 9 to 5, 8 to 4 work-life is no longer the most important and the best work-life for their employees. After this pandemic, we know that people don't have to stay 8 hours in the office to accomplish and to show their productivity and to improve the quality of their work. So I think the organization, the business operator will think over about how to carry out this experience, how to carry over this experience into the present and future operation of the business. Now, after we learn about the insights of the insight from the pandemic, what next that will be faced by the organization, by the business operator? These three things are currently become the trend and also become something that bring attention from the business operator. The first is the young generation voice. The young generation voice have become louder and louder. And then the business in the future will also have also face more standard and regulation related to the I think related to the societal issue as well as the natural environmental issue. And also right now we have seen already how the business role in expansion into the society. The business take societal issue into their strategy. Although in Indonesia, maybe we haven't seen it very clearly, but in some developed countries, in the United States, in the European countries, business started to involve in the societal issue and also even bring their support to the person that in charge of the decision making to help to support the issue that they are related to, that the business owners related to. So these three issues, wait a minute, the younger generation voices, standard and regulation that will be imposed in the future, more standard and regulation that will be imposed in the future, and also the business expansion into the social issue. Of course, it will bring more challenges to the business. So what the business can do, the last one, I think, the last slide. After our experience with the pandemic, and also that during the pandemic we can see that sustainability issue, some of them are really related and really can be accomplished with the some strategy that has been that also adopted by the organization during the pandemic. So this is something that can be proposed, that I can propose to the business operation. So the first is that listening to the employee voice, this is not just the voice from the employee, but talking about how to improve the attention from the organization to the human resources within the organization. And the second, working with more technologies to be more efficient and flexible. We have experienced this these last 2 years, and I think it is a good thing for the company, for the organization to carry over this practice to use more technology to gain more efficiency and also more flexible in their operation, and also from their employees assignment. And something that we also learned from the pandemic is that we have a challenge. We have a national challenge in terms of the quality of our supply chains. And the last one is this pandemic also teach us about cash flow management, teach us about that during difficult time, being able to maintain the financial side of the business management is really important to be able so that it help the organization to get through the pandemic. So this is I think so far my my deliveries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Retno Tanding Suryandari, PhD. As we know, sustainable business are quite struggling during these 2 years because of the pandemic. But after pandemic, we realized that the business should be more flexible to survive in any situation that not expected. There are recommendations how business should move forward. There are listening to the employee voices, working with the technologies, offering reforms, improve the product quality, and cash flow management. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next session is the third speaker is Mr. Agus Ganesha Rahyuda, PhD from Universitas Udayana. Good morning, Dr. Agus Ganesha.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Before I will deliver Mr. Agus Ganesha Rahyuda, PhD profile, Mr. Agus Ganesha Rahyuda, PhD, is a lecturer and dean in Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Udayana. He holds bachelor degree from Udayana University, master degree from Bandung Institute of Technology, and doctoral degree from University of Kent, United Kingdom. His research interest is in international business, entrepreneurship, management, human resource management, and organizational behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Agus Ganesha Rahyuda, PhD. In 30 minutes, time is yours.
Thank you very much. Is my voice okay?
Yeah, it's okay, sir. It's quite clear.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Dan opportunity of the Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas 11 Maret, Honorable Keynote and invite speakers, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Okay, for the operator in Udayana, could you please share my presentation? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Once again, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry. Universitas 11 Maret and all the co-hosts for having me in this prestigious conference. I am Agus Ganesha Rahyuda from Udayana University. Probably I'm bringing a context or a discussions. It is quite the same with Dr. Retno Tanding previously. I will be talking about sustainable business model for the prosperity of regions. So the difference between one that I would like to speak and Dr. Retno Tanding is I'm trying to connect it with the concept of regional economic development. So today there are, no, it's not moving, the clicker. Next, previously please. Cheers. Okay, today there are 3 talking points that I would like to deliver. Firstly, I would like to talk briefly about the regional economic developments, its programs, and also the issues. Secondly, I would like to propose a well-known but hard-to-apply model, which is called sustainable business model, where I argue to be the one of the solutions to tackle the regional economic development issues. Lastly, I would like to offer some future agenda for public decision makers or the government, academia, and or practitioners. So let us move to the first key points, which is regional economic development, or we call it as RED, the programs and its issue. We start from talking about the circular flow diagram. This fundamental diagram is long-known model that helps economists to explain economics in the most easiest way. The concept of regional economic development and how government become the key characters in accelerating the development of the regions that they govern. As we all know, in this diagram there are 3 actors in economy, which is government, who has responsibilities to publish law, regulations in order to accelerate the economy circulation, firms who provide goods and services to be consumed by the people inside or outside regions, and households who buy and use the products that the firm sell. And there are 3 markets, which are goods and services markets, factors of production market, and financial market. So by definitions, regional economic development here in after referred to RRED is defined as a general effort, mainly by government, to reduce regional disparities by supporting economic activities in regions, which subsequently will contribute maximally to the general growth and prosperity of the regions. So by that definition itself, and in terms of developing regions, it is the government, either in the level of countries, province, or cities and districts, who plays the central part and key roles in making their regions prosper. It is the government who must find ways for regions to have quality and qualified human resources. It is the government who attracts and retains investors so them can create new businesses and expansions of existing businesses in a way that expands the total number of jobs and results in rising average wage. Therefore, it is the government, the programs and its initiatives that help regions to prosper. To illustrate, I would like to offer some initiatives or programs from Indonesia government that are followed as well by their ministers, governors, or the head of districts or cities by producing derived regions regulations. This is, for example, government initiatives about market regulation and infrastructures to achieve its aims, which is developing the regions. In terms of providing regulations, Indonesia published an omnibus law of the Republic of Indonesia number 11 of 2020 on job creation. So this law can help investors to feel ease in investing their money, to provide a healthy employment environment, and to encourage entrepreneurship. Regarding infrastructure, we can see that Indonesia initiated a program called National Strategic Project, where there are 203 within 12 programs with a budget of 5,476 trillion in 2022 alone. And then to recover from COVID-19 pandemic, Indonesia produced a flagship flagship program called National Economic Recovery Program with the budget allocations of more than 455 billion rupiah to catch up with the global education progress and to ready themselves to take advantage from the demographic bonus in 2045. The Ministry of Education produced a new paradigm of learning in higher education called Freedom to Learn, or in Indonesia, Merdeka Belajar, Kampus Merdeka. And then another program to develop the human resources in Indonesia. There is one program, the collaborative program between Financial Services Authority, Ministry, Local Government, and Financial Services called Accelerations, the Access Acceleration to Regional Financial Services. Another initiatives such as BRIN, or National Research and Innovation Agency, provide a research fund up to 6.1 trillion rupiah to speed up the research ecosystem in Indonesia. So many more programs to develop Indonesia and its regions. All of these programs were also executed by the districts, cities, province government, and proven to impact the region's reputations, produce more entrepreneurs and MSEs, attract many investors, and increase the number of investment in Indonesia, which subsequently developed the regions within the Indonesia country. However, there are always two sides of every story. While government and regions enjoy the development, there are many issues arise regarding social and ecological environment. For example, issues related to the society's social problems, the movement of reclamations, rejections in Teluk Benua Bay, or the rejection of mini market development in some village because they argue that it will kill micro industry and their small economy. In terms of environmental problems, there are many problems. There were many natural disasters happen due to the massive investment that focus on economic benefit only, such as Lapindo Lumut, abrasion, massive deforestation, and smoke. So actually, what went wrong with the concept of the regional economic development? I believe it's nothing wrong, but instead of focusing only to the economic benefit of programs, initiatives, or investment, in the future, government must put a strict regulations to the investment that the investors must put bigger attention to the society and environmental issues in their business proposal. Government also needs to consider many society and environmental problems before developing their regional development plan. In short, the perspectives of social and environmental issues must put in balance with the financial and economic issues. Here, the model of, I'm sorry, it's not working, the clicker, sorry, wait a second. Not working, your clicker is off. Wait a second. All right. Here the model of sustainable business comes into play. The traditional model of doing business can be represented in this business model canvas, where the business processes lie on 4 pillars of this business model canvas. The first one is regarding the product or service value, and then followed by customer interface, infrastructure management, and financial aspect. And actually, this traditional model of business put a lot of attention solely on financial objectives. But this moment, international companies or organizations have redesigned their traditional model from focusing on profit to put a right balance of attention to ecological and social values, or we can say it as sustainable business model. So what differs the traditional business model and sustainable business model? There are four types of sustainable business models that we can catch from the literature that differ this model to the sustainable model one. First, sustainable business model. The first model, we can call it as participatory business model. A lot of keynote speakers in this event and also the invited speakers talk about the example of participatory business models. What is the emphasis on this participatory business model? It is shifting the focus to the users. We must understand that the users is a source of knowledge and innovations. Let them design the product. Ask them to put their attention or put their effort as well to the product that we design. Let them selling their idea, co-producing with them, co-innovating. Then the marketing, co-innovating as well. And then the user will be the users receiving the end product, the product that actually give hands into the development of the product itself. The second model of the SBM, you can say that moving from the users only and putting the emphasis on the stakeholders' involvement. It is not the user only, but also whole of the stakeholders. Product oriented based on stakeholders' involvement. So it is not only the customers, but they ask the clients, investors, shareholders, employees, suppliers, and partners. It is the stakeholder that will assess the potential environmental and economic issues and performance. It is actually stakeholders that can be asked to join us to have a multi-layer or multi-level of problem-solving decision-making. We suppose that once we invite the stakeholder into the equation, then hopefully we can reduce the negative environmental impact and also can increase the economic benefit of equipment, industry, extensive equipment. And then moving from the user model into the stakeholders model, and then we move to the not only this putting the emphasis on the stakeholder, but also make the big network between the stakeholder. So if we can see the network theory, it divides into four parts: dyadic, ego network, multiple interaction, and complete network. We expect that in the sustainable business model, they are not only communicating with the company, with the organizations itself only, but they can communicate with other stakeholders. So it is a complete network to design, generate, capture, and deliver sustainable value. And the last one is the sustainable model that is modified from the business model canvas. I added like 4 key authors in the literature that modified the business model canvas and add some elements, the sustainable elements into the sustainable business model. So the first one from Upward and Jones, 2015. So they added the natural environment, society, and financial economy into the business model canvas. Charles and Paquin, 2016, they tried to develop a new canvas. They call it triple layer business model canvas, who put an emphasis on, in the right balance between ecological, social, and financial values. And also comes Hayes et al. 2018 that putting a sharing of resources, putting a lot of emphasis on the technology orientations, digital transformations, and interactive communications. And the last one from Hogevald et al. 2015 that modifying the business model canvas and put the stakeholders' additions to the model in each of the pillars. Not only in the customer sides, not only in the supplier side, but each of the pillars. Okay, and the last slides of my presentations, our future agenda. So we can say that embodying and combining the three dimensions of sustainability, environmental, social, and economic are the key parts to produce or to make the sustainable business model happen. The values added into the product or services must be based on the concept of sustainability. But putting this concept of sustainability practices or perspectives, hopefully we can reduce the problems that initiate or the problems that happens when the government, the firms or household want to develop their regions economically. But this integrated model, business model, come from the left side and then the sustainable perspective, and then they join together into sustainable business model. Actually, this is an important drivers of solutions to problems affecting the social and environmental issues of the company and society. But it will not be happening at all if we don't have a correct enabler to make this model works. There are at least 4 enablers that I propose in the future agenda that the academia can put a lot of effort in their research, or the government can put their attention when they develop regulations. First of all, of course, collaborative action by all stakeholders. Just provide privilege or giving privilege to multiple stakeholder objectives. Once we develop a network point of view of sustainable business model, we can use the sharing information, sharing technology, sharing knowledge and costs, promoting improved competitiveness and economic performance, cooperation, networking, and partnership. We can gain all the advantage of the networks. We can do the co-development, co-innovation, and co-creation and design thinking, because we believe the user will not reject or will not do anything bad to their environment. So it is the key when we try to give privilege to the stakeholders. And then we must promoting the improvement of relation between company, environment, and society. It will impact the better resource use. And also in this multiple stakeholder privilege, it is not working if there is no commitment in the leaders of the organization, corporate leaders, government leaders, leadership action, and have a strong commitment to change and guide sustainable behavior. It is embedded, it must be embedded in their vision, it must be embedded in their mission, the sustainable initiatives. And also another is using a high level of technology in the paradigm of circular economy, repair, maintenance, repair and reduce the process, learning and training. And the last one is that it must be measured. So sustainable indicators must be developed, crowdsourcing, and then within this indicator, the stakeholder pressure, government pressure, and internal company force must put into actions. This is just an example of sustainability indicators that developed by University of Indonesia, UI Green Matrix. It is very good indicators that can be applied into the higher education ecosystem and natural environment. So from this future agenda, the triple helix, quadruple helix, and pentahelix, it depends on what helix you focus yourself on must be working together. Put the sustainability agenda into your programs, into your initiatives. Then probably we can develop our region not only focus, or we can develop our region not only for the benefit of economy, but also for the socials and for the environment. That is the last one, because we are the sole defender of the sustainability of this planet. So we must preserve it. Okay, thank you very much, Miss. That is my presentations. I do apologize if I'm not meeting your expectations, but this is the presentations that I can offer, and I open for any discussion or any questions that you would like to ask about these presentations. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Agus Ganesha Rahyuda, PhD. Sustainable business model for the prosperity of region by government initiative can be done through market regulations, infrastructure, human development, and research and development funds. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we are come to the questions and discussion session. There is any question, please welcome. You can raise your hand. And for the participant who joined through Zoom, please, you also can raise your hand or write the questions in the chat box. For the operator, could you please help me to open the chat box so I can see the question through the monitor here, please? Thank you. Okay, in the chat box, there are one question from Widyaswari Udayana. Can sustainable business model be implemented in public sector? How will it be adjusted to suit the non-profit environment? Thank you so much. If may I know, Ms. Widyaswari, the question is for who? Maybe for the other questions, if the participant who attends in this room, please. Okay, from Ms. Widyaswari, the question is for Mr. Agus Ganesha. Please, Mr. Agus Ganesha, PhD, you can answer the question first.
Probably I will ask the director from programming as well to complete my answers after this. The sustainable business model. Actually, we depart from the traditional business model, and it is or it puts a lot of attentions to the profit or economic profit only. Can it be implemented in the public sector, the sustainable business model? Yes, of course. If we talk about the traditional business model, then probably we need to adjust a little bit. But if we talk about the sustainable business model, yes, of course, it can be applied into the public sector. So the focus of the sustainable business model is asking the users, the stakeholders, the network itself in joining the equations. So for example, in the public sector organizations, the main focus of the public sector organizations is to provide services, and also the government to make regulations. So actually, if when you develop regulations and also you put your services into
into the customers, you can consider the input or the suggestions or the feedback from the users or from your network. Probably that is my answer. Can it be implemented? Yes, 100% yes. If we have the commitment to implement it. Thank you, Miss Moderator, and thank you, Miss Widyaswari. And hopefully, Dr. Tanding can edit some perspectives into the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Mr. Agus Ganesara, UWHD. Is there any other question from this room directly maybe, or maybe other questions in the chat box room, please? Okay, please.
That's okay. Thank you for the opportunity. So I would like to deliver my question to Prof. Arif. I think your presentation is awesome. So what would I want to ask is about the tension. So how if the Indonesian cannot avoid those tension, and what is the dangerous thing, maybe the most dangerous things if the tension will not be weakened or we can avoid it? Thank you.
Okay, this excellent question, spot on. You asked something that is not in the presentation, but a very important one. Thank you. What is the consequences of we are not be able to manage this very well, right? Well, of course, something bad. Yeah? I mean, the implication of inequality can lead to various different consequences. It's in the literatures, and it's happening already. One is that is very clear is inequality lead to social unrest. Inequality leads to social unrest, and then it divides society. It creates political identity politics, and I have another paper, for example, that show that actually religious intolerance is actually associated with increasing inequality. And if you read literatures written, for example, by I can't remember the name, but an English, British sociologist, Wilcoxon, I think. So normally, inequality will lead to many social aspect like even health and things like that. But for economists, I think things that is not really thing that should not be forgotten is that many people think that what matter more is poverty, not inequality. Well, it's okay, country is unequal as long as we don't have poverty. But they forgot that if you have high inequality, it is very unlikely that you can get rid of poverty. Because in a developing country, the source of the poverty reduction is economic growth. But if you have economic growth, but at the same time you have rising inequality, that economic growth will not spill to the bottom. So the poverty will be stay there. So inequality is a necessary condition. Lastly, actually I write a very short book about this, which suggests that actually inequality lead to low economic growth. Because when you talk about the real economic growth, it is mainly coming from innovation, not from investment, but innovation. And innovation comes from skill, human capital investment. And that human capital investment comes to broad-based education system. Broad-based education system means everyone get the same opportunity to be educated. Then when you don't have everyone same access to education, then you prevent them from being contributing to the economic growth. So it's in the literature. So there are so many bad consequences of inequality, and the tension is quite high at the moment for Indonesia. There is a declining a little bit, but I think that decline in inequality recently is not structural. It's just cyclical. So the structural is still increasing because the tension of rising tertiarization is still high. So long as you still have this tertiarization, you will have increased inequality. Indonesia now, if you measure correctly, I get it from the literature as well. If you measure correctly, Indonesia is among the top 15% highly unequal country in the world at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the questions and thank you for the answer, Professor Arif. There are another questions in the chat box. It's from Radia from Udayana. I am intending to kindly deliver my question to Professor. Based on your experience on research, what are the major or challenges or hindrances that we're facing in a digital transformation for business, and how we find and implement the possible solution to settle those challenges in the long run? Thank you. This question is for Professor Felix. Is Professor Felix is still joined in our Zoom room? Okay, I apologize because Professor Felix is not in this room anymore. So we regret that we can answer that question, Mr. Radia. Okay, maybe there is any other questions in this room, please? Okay, I think there is no other questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we are continue to the next session. The next session is handover souvenir from Second Incredible Committee to the speaker. I would like to invite Vice Dean in Academic and Student Affairs, Professor Dr. Iza Mafruha, SAMSE, to hand over the souvenir to the speaker, please. Okay, for the first, Professor Dr. Iza Mafruha is deliver the souvenir to Professor Dr. Arif. And second, Professor Dr. Iza Mafruha is deliver souvenir to Ms. Retno Tanding Suryandari, PhD. Okay, thank you for all the invited speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the invited speaker session. I give it back this session to the next agenda to our Master of Ceremony, to Ms. Winnie Parwitosuci. Thank you.
Dear all plenary speakers and moderator, thank you for the interesting and insightful discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, the last session is closing remarks that going to be delivered by Dr. Antony Paulus Sunjaya as the Vice Director of Health and Economics Research from PPI Dunia. To Dr. Antony Paulus Sunjaya, the time is yours.
Distinguished speakers, Professors Benny, Arangka, Felix, Arif, Retno, and Agus. Professor Jamal, Rector of Universitas 11 Maret. Deans of the Faculty of Economics and Business of UNS, Universitas Yatwala, Universitas Udayana, Universitas Tita. Editors of Journal Economy Malaysia. Speakers, participants, Prof. Iza, Pak Malik, and other committee members of this esteemed Congress. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Salam 24 Jam. My warmest greetings from London. On behalf of the Overseas Indonesian Student Association Alliance, or commonly known as PPI Dunia, it is a pleasure for me, as Vice Director for Research and Policy in Health and Economics, to extend our gratitude to UNS and the organizing committee for having us to be a part of this Congress. This year, PPI Dunia celebrates our 100th year anniversary, including in our annual Congress in Jakarta this week. Since its beginnings in Leiden, the Netherlands, in 1922, chaired by Muhammad Hatta, Indonesia's first Vice President, the Alliance has steadily grown in line with the dreams of the Indonesia, and now has chapters in over 60 countries globally, including almost all G20 states. We have transformed from a focus on pushing for Indonesia's independence to one that acts as a think tank, an active contributor to support Indonesia's growth and prosperity to achieve our golden era in 2045. The theme of today's Congress on regional economic development, information technology, and sustainable business is hence highly pertinent to our own focus in supporting Indonesia's stronger recovery post-pandemic, including with the coming publication of 5 books presenting the recommendations of Indonesian overseas students, supported by the National Research and Innovation Agency Press. I'm pleased to hear the wide range of discussions we had this morning, from financial technologies to sustainable funding, and having looked through the free paper sessions, wide variety of topics, certainly hope plenty of them would be translated and scaled beyond the research setting. I do hope this Congress will also act as a catalyst for more collaborations between universities in Indonesia, but also abroad. With over 120,000 students studying overseas in some of the world's leading universities, many of which are postgrads, PPI Dunia stands ready to be a bridge between them and institutions in Indonesia, including supporting those without a home base to be affiliated with Indonesian institutions once they return. Closing off, reflecting on my studies in Indonesia, UNSW, Harvard, Imperial College London, and other universities, there's 3 takeaways regarding research I wish to share. First, research needs time. High-quality research will take time, requires substantial investment in resources, but when successful, can bring huge economic multiplier effects. Research needs collaboration. It is an ecosystem to grow and flourish, including with partners from industry, government, media, and communities. Research needs translation. It should not stay in journals and take decades to benefit society. I am of the belief that if our research can change policy positively, it is far better than publishing in Q1 journals. Thank you once again for having us. Please feel free to ask the committee on how to contact us, and I wish you all a fruitful discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Antony Paulo Sunjaya. Dear all participants, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to join the parallel session that will be start at 1 p.m. And finally, thank you for participating in this webinar. See you and have a pleasant day.
The Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas 11 Maret, has established its vision to be a leading school of economics and business at the national level and recognized at the international level. FEB-UNS currently has 7 degree programs consisting of 3 bachelor undergraduate programs, 3 master programs, and 1 doctoral program. All programs have been accredited A, Excellent, by the National Accreditation Board.
Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas 11 Maret has established its vision to be a leading school of economic and business in Indonesia and internationally recognized by delivering high-quality teaching, excellent research, and community empowerment.
FEB-UNS is a member of the AACSB, Association to Advance Collegiate School of Business. The Master of Management program of FEB-UNS has been accredited by ABES 21, the Alliance on Business Education and Scholarship for Tomorrow, since 2016, while the undergraduate program in Management and the undergraduate program in Development Economics have been certified by the ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance since 2018 and 2019, respectively. Research outputs of FEB-UNS have been among the top 5 in Indonesia. A number of articles written by academic staff have been published in prestigious top-tier journals. Moreover, FEB-UNS has been appointed and granted by several governmental institutions such as Bank Indonesia, Indonesia Financial Services Authority, OJK, and Indonesia Deposit Insurance Corporation, as well as international organizations such as World Bank and USAID to perform research collaborations.
The Faculty of Economic and Business is supported by qualified academic staff with more than 45% hold a doctoral degree. The curriculum is assigned with demand of job market. FEB also participates in Campus Merdeka.
FEB-UNS also plays a role in community development through several activities, including community assistance, training and consultancy for micro and small enterprises, rural development, and many others. Students' participation in scientific, art, and sport competitions, both at the national and international level, is also strongly encouraged. Students also have opportunities to intern in corporations, governmental institutions, or non-governmental organizations. There are also opportunities for students to participate in international mobility programs. To accelerate the quality of education and research,